Hi everyone joining us online today. My name's David Millichap and I'm a General Manager here at CheckUP. I'm not your MC today, I'm just going to do a little introduction. As you probably saw, our MC today is Dinesh Palapana and he's almost here. So he'll be here very shortly. So there might be a small delay to the start of our event, but if you're watching online, please do stay with us. Make yourself a cup of tea, get ready for 90 minutes of excellent presentations. As you know, it's National Disability Week, and our QPHCN meeting today marks National Disability Week, and we have a great lineup of speakers for you today. So please, if you are online, stay with us and we'll get back to you shortly, probably 5 minutes. So thank you once again for joining us, and I'll see you back here in about 5 minutes. Thanks. Hi everybody watching online, thanks for your patience. We're going to commence now, so yeah, apologies for that slight delay. But on behalf of CheckUP and our CEO Anne-Marie Liddy, who is an apology today, she might be able to pop down later. She said to let everyone know she's trying to get here, just in other meetings. But on behalf of CheckUP staff and board, welcome and thank you for joining us today during Disability Action Week for our final Queensland Primary Healthcare Network event of 2024. To begin the proceedings, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting here today. That's in Brisbane or Meanjin, and the traditional owners are the Turrbal and Yuggera peoples. But also acknowledging we have people online from right around Queensland and possibly beyond. So we'd like to also pay our respects to the traditional owners of wherever you may be viewing from today. Okay, we'd also like to acknowledge the Queensland Aboriginal and Islander Health Council. As you can see, some beautiful artwork around the room here. This is Quake's training room, so thank you to Quake for allowing us to hold our event here. Now, just a little bit of housekeeping. As I said earlier, I'm not your MC today. I'm just doing a little introduction, and I'll be handing over shortly to Dr. Dinesh Palapana, who has travelled from the Gold Coast. I think he was working this morning at the Gold Coast Hospital and has kindly travelled all the way up here to be our MC today. And he'll be here very shortly. But I just do some little bit of housekeeping. As you know, as you can see, the event is being filmed today, and we'd like to welcome our new live streaming company, Ride Free, who are just down the road in West End. So thanks for joining us today. If you're in the room and you don't wish to be filmed or appear on the film at all, please let one of our staff know. We have a number of speakers joining us today, and I'd really like to thank them from the outset for taking time out of their busy schedules to join us today, share their knowledge and their personal stories. Also joining us today is Dan Hatley, to my left here, and Julie Tate, who's sitting at the front here, from Auslan Services, who will be interpreting the presentations today. I'd also like to thank our new event sponsor, MediProtect. MediProtect have come on board. They are an insurance, they offer insurance solutions for healthcare businesses and health professionals. And from MediProtect, we have Rachel Middendorp, who will address you right at the end of the session. But a special welcome to you, Rachel, and thanks to MediProtect for coming on board as our new QPHCN sponsor. Thank you. Just a little bit more housekeeping. The bathrooms for the people in the room. If you're at home, you know where your bathroom is. But if you're in the room, it's down the hall, then to your right. If you need a break from the room at any time, and I think I'll take advantage of this, there is a space available in the Quake kitchen if you just need some time out, or if anything you hear today maybe does trigger any feelings or emotions, there is a quiet space here in the Quake social kitchen room there. And if you have any accessibility requirements that have not been met, please let one of the CheckUP team know and we'll do our best to assist. So now we might go to our first speaker, and Dinesh is almost here, but we'll rock on. And our first speaker is Sarah Pulis, is the co-founder and director of Intopia. Intopia is a leading digital accessibility and equitable design agency, and she's passionate about creating an inclusive digital world. Sarah has been working in accessibility and inclusive design for over 14 years, helping organisations create more inclusive digital products and services. She's an extremely passionate and accessibility advocate. Sarah founded Australia's largest accessibility and inclusive design events, A11Y Bites and A11Y Camp, which you might tell us a little bit about. Both events aiming to support the sharing of knowledge and encouraging community connection. So please join me in welcoming Sarah. Just turning this on.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands we meet today, both here and for our people online. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and also to emerging leaders. So my name is Sarah, and I've been working in the digital accessibility and inclusive design space now for coming up to 14 years full-time. And I think, yeah, it's definitely a passion of mine. The events that were spoken about, Ali Bites and Ali Camp, there is a reason why it's A11Y, but we just shorten that to Ali. But for me, you know, that actually those events are about raising awareness of accessible and inclusive experiences and really bringing people together. It can be a really hard thing, I think, sometimes to advocate for accessibility and inclusion. Often we are the lone voices in organisations, you know, trying to drive change. And so it is through the events like this and events like some of the ones that I've been involved with that we can come together, that we can support each other, but also that we can spread that message and that awareness around that importance of inclusive and accessible experiences. So today I feel like I'm with my peeps. I suspect I don't necessarily need to sell to you the importance of this. But what I did want to do is just share a little bit around what accessible and inclusive communication does mean to me and to some of the people that I work with. So as I was putting together this presentation, I actually was reflecting on a story that Jess King shared. Now, Jess actually shared this a number of years back. Jess worked for us, and she had a congenital heart disease. And because of that, she actually had an infection on the brain, and that actually caused brain damage for her. When she actually came to work with us, she actually could work about 25 minutes and then would need to have a 10-minute break. So we've always supported flexible work arrangements, and we said, hey, yeah, look, come along, you know, work part-time. We don't really care when you work, just, you know, if you get the work done, if you can't, let us know. But she actually says after she woke up in hospital, she had to relearn to do everything. To walk, to talk, everything. And she started out where she could only really concentrate for about 3 minutes. And then she, you know, just had to have a break. So when she came to work with us, she actually shared her story at the Ali Bites event that was mentioned. And it was about applying for a rental property. So her and her husband needed to apply for a rental property, and she said, you know, a lot of the rental agencies had moved their applications online because that was going to make it easier for everyone to do. And so she actually went online and started to fill out this online application. First thing that happened as she was filling out this application is, we've probably all been there with applications like this, where you have to provide a lot of details, you know, whether it's driver's license or you need to look up, you know, what your salary is or all these different documents. They didn't actually tell Jess what those documents were that she needed to reference before she started. So as she's going through this process, she's having to get up, go and find that license, go and find that gas bill, whatever it was that she needed to do. So this didn't allow her to manage for her cognitive fatigue. Next thing, the form really wasn't designed very well. She actually talks about entering in dates. And instead of just being able to enter in a date via the keyboard, typing in day, month and year, it actually forced her to use a date picker, where she had to go through and scroll through and find the year, and then find the month, and then find the day. And she's like, well, look, you know, there's about 10 or more dates that I need to input. So that, again, caused more and more time that she had to spend on this application. And as she said, as you know, this time went on and she spent more and more time, because of her cognitive fatigue, she became more stressed. Her attention to detail and her ability to focus decreased as she went through this process. Here's the final kicker. She got to the end of the form, and unbeknownst to her, her husband actually had filled in a form as well, and it went, oh, you've put in some details here for your husband. Would you actually like to merge your application with his? And she said yes. And she said the form completely cleared and she had to start again. Now at this point, she says, I literally threw up. The stress of having to go through this process, the inefficiencies in the form, just meant that physically she was just, that was enough. She threw up. And she said, I really couldn't do anything more for the rest of the day. She said even walking was difficult. And as I reflected on the importance of accessible communications, there are so many factors that do go into it. You know, for Jess, thinking about her situation and providing that information up front about some of the documents that she needed would have allowed her to do that and then come back and start the application and manage her fatigue like that. Of course, the design of the form wasn't that great. And I can tell you the actual real estate company knew it. This filtered back to them, and they very apologetically said yes, this was a form that they had inherited from another organisation that they had acquired, and they definitely knew it needed to be updated, but they hadn't been able to update it yet. So, the actual design of the form itself was quite poor. And so when we're talking about inclusive and accessible experiences, for me, I like to use the definition, and there's many definitions out there, but mine is that any digital product or service provides equitable access to all, regardless of a person's needs or preferences. I've highlighted a few parts of that statement. Any digital product or service, that means anything that we can access digitally. I like to say we are all content creators. Every single time we send an email to someone or create a document, we are a content creator. You don't have to be someone who is building websites or mobile apps. That second part is equitable access to all. And although I could probably do a whole presentation on the difference between equal access and equitable access and what it means, what I wanted to highlight here is that when we talk about equitable access, it is about providing the experience or the solutions that an individual needs. There's a wonderful cartoon out there that actually looks at three people of different stature, and they're trying to look over a fence. And we could provide them with all the same sort of requirements, like a box to stand on. So the person who's taller just gets taller, and the person who's shorter may still not be able to see over that fence. It actually might be that the person who's tall doesn't need anything to stand on, but the person who's shorter needs two boxes and the person who's in the middle needs one. It's kind of like Goldilocks, something's just right, but it's just right for the individual person. And then lastly, person's needs and preferences. I love this statement because although I am extremely passionate and a huge advocate of disability and what people with disabilities need, we also need to look beyond that to everyone's needs and preferences. As we get older, you know, things start to break down. And as I said, as I always say, you know, both my parents, my mum is, well, actually my dad is hard of hearing, my mum is too, but she has hearing aids. But they don't necessarily consider themselves as having a disability. And when we do actually look at the needs and preferences of everyone, we also just build better experiences for everyone, and also in the situations that anyone might find themselves in. So when we look at inclusive communications, there's a few things that we can think about. The first is, and excuse me for looking at the screen, people can easily get what they need in the way that they want. Next, that people can easily find what they need. Then people can easily understand what they find. And then lastly, people can easily use the information. So our first one, people get what they need. It is relevant to them. And that is all about understanding your readers, the people who you're creating communications for. We want to look at the literacy and language skills of our readers, the different cultural backgrounds, what their subject matter expertise is. You know, is it a health provider with information about health services coming in, or is it a person off the street who might have a different understanding? And also the space that I generally live in is the access, needs and preferences. One of the things to remember when understanding your readers is also that communication is not just one way, it is two-way communication. So when we talk about digital experiences, there is about creating accessible content, making sure that content is accessible and does work for people. Not that just that they understand it, but that it works for the different technologies that they might be using. But also it might be about their choice of communication method. If they are trying to communicate with you, perhaps someone may actually prefer a chatbot. It's a written form of communication, and it also is sometimes actually removes you a little bit from the person on the other end. It was quite interesting. I was at the South by Southwest conference about a month back, and of course I went to all the panels around, you know, accessibility, and also though about AI. And someone actually referenced a study where individuals who were maybe accessing mental health services for the first time felt more comfortable with an AI-generated chatbot, because as a piece of technology, it was a little less confronting than maybe, say, knowing that a human was on the other end of that communication channel, whether that was verbal or written. And I found that really interesting, because sometimes it's not just about how we produce the content, it is also about how we can use technology in a way that actually brings equitable access to all. Next part is about finding information. So these kind of probably feel a bit like no-brainers, putting the most relevant information first. But in Jess's case, you could see the most relevant or the most useful information wasn't put up front, and the impact that had on her. Using headings to structure content, again, really simple one. However, as a person who lives in the digital accessibility space, I'm continually surprised when I do review sites for accessibility, how people don't get headings right. They either don't use them, or they don't actually mark them up in the code correctly. So they might look lovely, but in the code they're not actually marked up. So for instance, someone who is a screen reader user who's blind is not getting that same information as, say, myself, who is a sighted user, who gets the hierarchy of headings from the visual styling. Use icons and symbols with text. So this one particularly is going to be helpful for people with cognitive impairments or reading difficulties as well. So pairing up icons and symbols, noting they do need to be recognisable and take also into consideration cultural references, can actually help people identify things quicker. And particularly if they're visiting your site or content multiple times, it might actually over time be quicker for them to, say, recognise a symbol than read text. And then lastly, keep supplementary information separate. I was a marketer in a previous life, and so I can kind of bag out those marketers who are like, oh, can we just put this little thing here? It's got really nothing to do, or maybe it's only tangentially related to what we're talking about, but can we just put this on the site? I've had that argument. I've won some and I've lost some. But making sure that that content is relevant to what your reader needs and keeping that supplementary or that marketing content separate. Understandable, using familiar words, plain language. I think an example of this that I still remember today, probably because it gave me such a visceral reaction. I was doing some usability testing with people so they could review a site and give out their feedback about the site. And we had a consent form. And I was working with a client and I had flagged to this client, look, your consent form is very hard to read. It's all legalese. And they're like, that's nice, but you know, legal signed it off, all that kind of thing. Anyway, we sent the consent forms to the participants early, like we always do, so that they can have the time to review, review it on their own devices. And when this particular person rocked up and I said, have you had a chance to review the consent form? And he said no. And I watched him sit there, read it out aloud. It was pretty much a full A4 page. And at the end he turned to me and said, so what does that mean? And I sort of gulped and went, what do I do here? And so I read through the form and I did paraphrase it. There were parts that weren't even relevant to the study. And I sort of went, oh, there's this part here, but honestly it's not relevant, keep on going. And all those other parts I tried to summarise. And at the end I very tentatively said, are you happy to sign? And he said, yes. But it was not a good experience for him. It should never really have happened. But it also wasn't a great experience for me either. I felt terrible in this situation. So using plain language, familiar words, making sure things are written clearly and concisely, using images and multimedia as well as text. So the picture tells 1,000 words. Pictures are going to be useful to some people. We still want to provide alternates like alternative text or the same information within text format. But we can do that side by side so people can decide what it is that they want, what actually suits them as they're reading through content. And making sure your language is inclusive as well. Lastly, is your content usable? So I work in the digital space and I haven't mentioned the standard that everyone seems to know about when I talk digital, which is WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And that's all I'm going to say today, other than I have fought for 14 odd years to educate people that assessing whether your website is accessible is more than just assessing against these standards. We need to make sure that things actually work for people, they are actually usable. Accessible communications is no different. It is part of all forms of digital experiences. So test with your readers. Also provide help if needed. So yes, we want to make our content and our communications stand alone if possible, but if someone does need help, provide that mechanism for them to get in contact with you. And then review that content over time. So when we talk about communications, for me, it is so essential for equitable experiences. We want everyone to feel included and respected in their interactions with us, and also the information that we share. Thank you very much.
Just checking my mic's on. Yep, great. Thanks so much, Sarah, and thanks for opening our session today. Great information there. I was thinking the whole time about, because I'm working in marketing and comms, so thinking the whole time of what we could do differently. So some great tips there. I've got some good news. Dinesh is here. Yay! Big round of applause. So I'm going to do my last emceeing duties of the day now, and I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker and our MC for today. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Dinesh Palapana, OAM. Dinesh is a doctor, lawyer, researcher, and disability advocate. He was medical school with quadriplegia in Australia. As a result of his injury and experiences, Dinesh has been an advocate for inclusion and is a founding member of Doctors with Disabilities Australia. Dinesh works in the emergency department at the Gold Coast University Hospital and is a senior lecturer at Griffith University and adjunct research fellow at the Menzies Health Institute. Dinesh is the 2021 Queensland Australian of the Year, and he has been involved and a wonderful advocate and help with CheckUP's Access for All online disability awareness course. But above all, he's simply a great person, and I'm sure you'll enjoy his presentation and his emceeing duties, which he's doing for the first time. So over to you, Dinesh. Thank you. Please make him welcome.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for being patient while I got here. I'm really grateful for Mandy and the team at CheckUP for allowing me to be included in their work, which is so powerful, so important, and I think they do amazing things for our community. I actually want to acknowledge my friend Garrett. So Garrett came to the rescue yesterday. One of our other team members who helps me out broke his finger and toe. So in the evening at about 10:30 p.m. it became evident that he needs to be replaced. And so Garrett actually moved his specialist appointment with his rheumatologist and his physiotherapist and made the time to bring me up here today. And I got to say, Garrett is also a Torres Strait Islander of the Malu Kiwai people. And he's taught me a lot about Torres Strait Island life and history. So I'm very grateful to have him as a friend. But talking about the theme and about accessible communication, include and empower, I think this is so critical, right? Communication is our interface with the world. I haven't faced many of the communication barriers that others have faced. My insight was just a window into it when I was in the ICU on a ventilator, and it took me a few weeks to be able to speak a full sentence and to get my words back properly. But I know there are so many people that go through this. So over the weekend, I was working night shifts in our emergency department, the busiest emergency department in the country. And I think in the course of our work, in the course of this business that we do, which is life-saving at times, where people are critically ill, where we need to make split-second decisions, where lives and families are at stake, the issue of communication became so apparent when the COVID-19 pandemic happened. So at that time, we started getting people into our emergency department who were dependent on lip reading. And when all the staff were wearing masks, and when they had respiratory symptoms and they were locked away in a room, their lives just became so much harder than the other patients. When there was signage directing people where to go for the flu clinic or where they need to be, and that signage wasn't accessible, it created a lot of trouble for people. People who were dependent on devices We didn't have infection control plans for those devices. So for some of the people that are most dependent on communication in our healthcare system, we realized that actually, even in 2020, 2021, we were not that well prepared. It's been a learning curve. I think there's a long way to go, and I think there's more work to be done before we make the whole world accessible when we look at communication. But I want to plant another seed in our minds. Over the years, I've come to learn that we have to focus on the things we can control and let go of the things we cannot control. And during my time with a spinal cord injury since 2010, I've seen governments come and go, I've seen politicians come and go, and I've seen people make policy for the community of people with disability that sometimes benefits them, that sometimes takes away from them. And now more than ever, we're having all these conversations. What I've learned is that much of it is outside of our control. But if we're talking about communication and inclusion, I think we have to think outside of our communities as well. We have to think about how to communicate to the political left and to the political right. We have to think about how we communicate to the shareholder, to the CEO. We have to think about how we communicate to the health professionals, to those people that may not be on the journey with us yet. Because it's good, it's great that we have a passionate room full of people here. It's great that we have a passionate room full of people on Zoom, perhaps. We've got to ask ourselves the question though, are we the ones that need to hear this message? So I think in a nutshell, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work in the community, but we have a lot of work in life-saving areas like emergency departments and intensive care units as well. But we are all together on this journey. We buy this message. We know why it's important. But I think as we move forward, we have to be courageous enough to include people in our communication who may not be on this journey yet, because that is where the big wins are to be had. So thank you very much for giving me a time this morning. And I want to introduce the next speaker, who is Emma Lynham. And I've always been amazed and impressed with Emma's work. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Emma. So Emma is joining us online today from Townsville, and she runs a business called Master Shredder. So she's a vibrant businessman and entrepreneur, and Master Shredder is a confidential shredding service for sensitive documents. The business's ethos, powered by possibility, it's not defined by disability, is a testament to Emma and her work. In her spare time, Emma enjoys modeling, traveling, going to the theatre, and enjoying dinner with friends. She just happens to have Down syndrome and was born deaf and has a cleft palate as well. As a result, she has very little verbal communication, and despite this, Emma loves to share her story with people using an iPad and an app called Pictello. But I once saw the movie Scarface, and in the end, Scarface goes out in a blaze of glory. So one day, if I decide to break the law and need to shred my documents in a hurry, as the law comes for me, I'm going to call Emma up and ask her to shred my secret documents. So I'll hand it over to Emma.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Yep, ready to go. And that way up. CheckUP, communication by Emma Lynham. Hi, my name is Emma Lynham. I have been invited to speak to you today on the subject of communication. I'd like to start off by sharing a little bit about me. As you may have noticed, I have a disability. I have Down syndrome, autism, hearing loss, and speech impairment. While all these diagnoses are true, I also have so much more. These disabilities have affected my ability to speak, but I still have a voice, and important and valuable things to say. I am a daughter, a sister, an auntie, a business owner, a speaker, a fashion model, a homeowner, a homemaker, and a friend. My business, Master Shredder, is a unique document destruction service. Here I am connecting with another business for marketing. I go to the client and shred on site. The documents are then removed after they have already been shredded. My staff never touch, view, or handle any of the documents that I deal with, as they are able to read and therefore are a confidentiality risk. This means that a skill that is usually seen as valuable, reading, in this case is a disadvantage, so my disability is elevated to being highly valuable. Outside of work, I live in my own home. I like to go to the movies. I like to see concerts. Hang out with friends over food and drinks. Or spending time with my family. I often share my story about working with disability, and have done so on an international level a number of times now. Here is a photo of me sharing a story with CheckUP via Zoom. I am also a fashion model. I have done photo shoots and high-tea runway fashion. I am currently in the process of creating a portfolio, so I actively seek paid modeling work. I have been doing local modeling for a boutique here in Townsville in a voluntary capacity for the past 2 years. I have so many of the good things of life. Much of those good things have come in spite of the assumptions or unconscious biases that people have of people with Down syndrome. Here I am with Kimberly getting a little tipsy at a naughty burlesque concert. Let's talk about the barriers that society has for people who are devalued like myself. My team and I use a framework that's called Social Role Valorization, SRV. Wolf Wolfensberger, the founder, did a lot of study into the societal patterns for people. First, let me explain what it means to be a devalued person. A person who has a disability, physical, intellectual, a person who is older, or otherwise not seen in a positive light by the surrounding community, in SRV is considered devalued. Wolf doesn't say that society as a whole is nasty or judgmental. He simply brings awareness to the unconscious assumptions and behaviors that us as humans naturally have. We don't wake up with the intention to judge or assume things about another person, and many of us even consider ourselves open-minded, inclusive and caring to all we encounter. However, even so, there is scientific studies showing that human beings as a society unconsciously make judgments every day. Here I was in Brisbane for a profession photo shoot creating my portfolio. The photographer communicated with me by showing me how he wanted me to sit and pose, and I did as I was shown. He did not need support to communicate with me, and we got some really great work done while having a little fun. He said he loved how down to earth and easy I was to work with. Whatever he asked me to do, I was happy to give a try. SRV uses an if this, then that mindset. If someone is employed, has their own home and a close friend circle, then it is likely that they are perceived by society to be valuable, because they have the things and roles that we as a society believe holds value. Home, money, connections, friends. If that is true, then it's also likely that someone who is not working, doesn't have their own home, it may be that they are homeless or couch surfing, has little or no connection to other people, then that person is likely to be seen as holding less value by society. Here I am meeting with my microboard. They are a group of people who gather in a voluntary capacity to discuss and help me achieve the good things of life that I am reaching for. They come from various walks of life and experiences, which helps me explore different options and utilize connections. When people first see me, I am clearly a person living with Down syndrome. Then it's also likely that there are certain stereotypes that people may assume about me. Common stereotypes for me is that I am an eternal child. People often wondering what is my diagnosed age, treating and talking to me like I'm not an adult. Down syndrome also has the stereotype that we are always happy people. I can assure you that I can get right cranky and swear when the times call for it. Here I am at the hairdresser's, with Mark. Over the years we have built a connection where we share what we've been up to and what our plans are. We have a true friendship and enjoy catching up. I do not need support to facilitate this connection, so I see Mark by myself. When leaving school, it was suggested that the best place for me was a day program. The person saying this didn't mean to assume the worst about me or have any other interest than to try and help, but that was not the road that my life would ever take. Every person in our society, rich or poor, able-bodied or disabled-bodied, highly intellectual or intellectually impaired, every person has their own innate gifts and talents that they can use to give and then in turn receive from their community. SRV teaches us that it is through our valued roles that a person changes another person's mindset about perceived inabilities or limitations. My mum, Jo, helped me to identify what my skills and passions are. What am I good at? What do I enjoy to do? So, through those questions and explorations, Master Shredder was born. I have valued a working role, with other valuable working people, which then opens the door to more valuable roles associated with working. Here I am at Queensland Country Bank, where they provided a morning tea celebration for our 5-year working relationship. I am invited to their Christmas party every year, and am even included in their staff gifts. Simply doing and being seen in my role as the Master Shredder sends out communications to the people who are around me and see me. I am in a uniform. I have a van with my business advertisement on it. I have the correct tools and equipment of any person who shreds confidential documents. My work role alone then communicates to those around me without having to verbally say a single word that I am working, I am successful, I am contributing, and therefore I hold value. Here I am at C&B Design's celebration. Ben and Clint have included me as a part of their business team from the very beginning, and we now have a several-year-long working relationship. Society communicates through commonalities more than they do differences. Because I am working, and in various roles associated with working people, I can naturally draw commonalities, and it makes it easier for other people to connect and understand me. For this reason, many of my clients like to take the time to listen to my stories, and hear about what amazing things I have been up to since last I shed. Here I am sharing what I did on my weekend. This allows my clients to see and understand me as more than just a business owner. When we communicate, the first form that comes to mind for everyday communications is verbal speech, either in person or on the phone, followed by written in emails and documents. Let's consider all the forms of communication we are exposed to throughout a normal and typical day. We have verbal and written communication on an individual and group level. We also use and are exposed to various visual communications, road signage to get to and from work, hazard awareness through imagery and text, often in the forms of posters for workplace health and safety or mental health supports throughout our workplaces. Photos of staff members on posters explaining their roles and responsibilities in a fire situation, or for communication to clients about who might be the best person to suit their needs. Advertisements for various businesses, from fast foods, to lawyers, to real estate. Workplaces often have visual representations of policies so that it's quick and easy access for reminders. We can apply Wolfenberger's research around society to understand how a person with difficulties around communication for various reasons may be perceived. Once again, Wolf doesn't say that people or society are naturally or intentionally harmful. Here I am at a networking event sharing a story marketing my business. When someone has limited or poor communication skills, we often assume it means the person either doesn't have anything of value to say or that they're not that bright. This is not a malicious judgment, but a subconscious assumption, because communication is how we as people connect to one another, and so it is therefore valued very highly. If communication is valued in our society very highly, then it is safe to then say that low or poor communication is not valued highly by society. Here I am being filmed in my home to tell my story in Fearless Films, which was aired on network television. The film then went on to be a global hit. I, in the role of Master Shredder's owner and operator, use various methods of communications across various aspects of the associated roles. I understand that the majority of people do not understand or connect in the same way to alternate methods of communication, so I do try to speak verbally as much my limited verbal communication allows. Here I am sharing a story about going to Magic Men with a couple girlfriends. I thought it was deliciously naughty. What do you see being communicated here? I am the Master Shredder. It's my business, I do the work, I am the boss. Sometimes a little bossy too. Communication for any typical person is given and received across so many ways beyond just verbal speech. We communicate through how we present ourselves, our body language, gestures, pointing. As demonstrated above, we use a variety of images in our typical and day-to-day life, even when we do have the capacity for comprehensive speech. I have a lot to say and share about my life and my journey of growing up with a disability and the assumptions that people have made about what my life will look like as a result. With the support of my amazing mum, Jo, my great team, and my family, I have risen above these assumptions. Here Sam is presenting me with flowers for hosting and sharing my story at International Person with a Disability Day at the Ville here in Townsville. Jo realized when I was very young that it was unlikely I would have a full vocabulary, and that communication is important for any person. As such, she started to teach me sign. In time I began to understand that when I signed this, then people did what I was asking. I like using sign to communicate because it means I can say what I want to do, what I feel, what is happening in my day. Sign means that I can be heard on the needs that I have physically, food or thirst, or emotionally in the moment when it's needed. Imagery is a powerful form of communication between people. We often hear, "Show me so I can understand," or "I learn by seeing," right? Pictures, videos or modeled behavior therefore is very common and valuably used all the time as effective communication. It is incredibly important to be mindful of what is typical when using this form of communication. When sharing information with a typical woman of 30 years of age how to do something, or what is expected of them, it's not common for that communication to include teddy bears and bright colors like an early childhood learning center. Here I am presenting at International Day of Persons with Disability that I hosted. As you can see, it looks like any other typical event. It has a screen to present my story, not unlike presentations with visual aids, a sign that is clear and professional rather than colorful and play pretend. It was a real event inviting people of all abilities sharing our challenges and achievements. It was at the Ville rather than segregated to a disability-specific group or place. I also learned very quickly that if I couldn't say what I wanted, then the best method is to show people what I want. They say a picture speaks 1,000 words, right? I use pictures a great deal to communicate with my staff and my community around me. My work calendar of jobs is simply portioned up into the days of the week, then my jobs and appointments are pictures of the places, and I can then clearly show my staff. Today we do this job, then this job, and then this job. Then I'll add what other commitments I have after work. Today hairdresser, for example. I have access to a communication app where the tiles have photos so I can see what they say, and the app then speaks it aloud on from the device for me so that I can order my own cake and milk, or pre-order an upcoming DVD that I'm really interested in getting. If the information that I'd like to share is longer and more involved, then I use my story app, just like this, including pictures and explanations that is then spoken out by the app so that I can share my ideas, thoughts and experiences. My family and staff often help me to create these stories, but I am always involved in the process of what pictures I'd like to use, and I listen to the text and tell them if I don't like parts of it before I share it with the people who are around me. Here I am sharing a story with Dave about my plans for an upcoming holiday and what I plan to do. Dave is the owner, with his wife Adele, of the farm where my shredded paper waste is taken to for use as mulch on their avocado trees. To recap, communication is a very important part of our society. I myself have what is considered limited communication, however, with the help of visual communications, through my image, the use of pictures to demonstrate my meaning, sign, the support of communication apps, and my staff, I am able to not only express my immediate needs, but I am also able to share and tell my story on a day-to-day basis, as well as in the role of public speaker. I like to share how the role of work has opened up so many other opportunities and given me access to the good things of life. If I could ask you one thing, when you come across someone using alternate communication styles, taking just a moment to provide undivided attention so that we can be heard is so empowering and true inclusion. It doesn't matter how I communicate. It only matters what I say. Thank you. You?
I think just listening to her, all things aside, I feel like she teaches us many things too. And as a human being, I love the way she gives society the benefit of the doubt and has a kindness in the way that she approaches people, and I think that is really important. But I feel like she should be lecturing at the business school as well, because honestly, things like her approach to the workflow and how to build business relationships through her personal story. It's incredible. And it's what businesses lack these days, so I feel like she has much to teach both humanity and business owners too. So next, I would love to introduce you to Lisa Strudwick and Aaron Ohm from the Disability Gateway. Lisa is the team leader for Disability Gateway's National Partnerships Program. Lisa's background is in community engagement and project management across a range of disability and community services. In recent roles, Lisa managed accommodation vacancies for a large SDA provider, promoted the National Care Finder program, and co-designed training for New South Wales Health's suicide prevention centres. Aaron joined the Disability Gateway as a community services consultant in December 2022. Aaron was working in the banking industry when his sight began to deteriorate. He made the decision to move across to a state government and then a role in disability services. After a stint working with a certified accredited NDIS auditor, Aaron applied to join the Disability Gateway team. Based in his home office in Brisbane, Aaron is a highly valued member of the national team of phone researchers helping people navigate disability services across the country. Thanks so much for giving us your time.
Thank you for having us, everyone. My name's Lisa Strudwick. I'm the team leader for partnerships and engagement for the federal government's Disability Gateway program. So my job is to go around the country and make sure that everybody knows that Disability Gateway exists and how accessible it is to them. And with me today is Aaron Ohm, who can introduce himself.
Hi, yes, I'm Aaron. I'm one of the consultants that then gets to take the phone calls from the people that Lisa refers to us.
So Aaron's here as my security blanket because he's the person who actually takes the calls and who will be able to answer any tricky questions that you might have about the service, because that's his full-time job, is being a navigation expert. So first of all, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders' continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past and present. So welcome to the Disability Gateway. This was set up by, in January of 2021, the federal government realised that there was a lot of difficulty around Australia in terms of there were many services that were available, but people were having difficulty in finding those services. So they set up a new service called the Disability Gateway. It is a website, a phone line and a social media page. And what we would really like to talk to you about today is the phone line, because that's incredibly accessible for anybody who needs help to navigate services. Okay, so I'm going to play the ad because we only had it launched 2 days ago, and it's got a few sort of different accessibility elements. So it's 30 seconds, and this gives you a snapshot to get your head around what is Disability Gateway.
Disability services and support. Overwhelming. The Disability Gateway is here to make it easier. It's a free Australia-wide government service connecting all people with disability, their families, friends and carers to reliable information and support. Call 1-800-643-787 and speak to a real person to help find options that are right for you. Visit disabilitygateway.gov.au for more.
People who you will speak to if you phone that number is Aaron. There's about 20 people who most are based in our Sydney office, but they are connected to services around Australia, and Aaron is based in his home in Brisbane. So that's why this was an exciting opportunity to be able to, for me to meet Aaron in real life, yeah, to be able to have somebody who's actually doing the work with me. Okay, so I'm going to read out the slide because Aaron it doesn't have sight, and then Aaron will tell you a little bit more information. So, first thing to know, what is the Disability Gateway? It's more than a website. Can I just have a show of hands of the people who are here if you have heard of the Disability Gateway? Oh, that's good. Okay, so I mean, that's 6 people here. Now, it's a service that was launched in January of 2021 during the time of COVID. So we were commandeered to help people who have accessibility challenges to be able to access COVID vaccinations and information. And now, obviously, there's not as big an emphasis on COVID now, and so we're able to really help people navigate all services, which is what we were set up to do originally. It's a free Australia-wide service. It's for everybody who, anybody who feels that they have a disability and would like to be able to access services. So you don't need a diagnosis, you don't need to be on NDIS, you don't even need to be a person with disability. You might be somebody who's concerned about someone with disability and you call us. It's a free 1-800 phone service. You'll speak with a real person straight away if you call that 1-800 number. So somebody, oh, I had good reflexes there. Somebody, perhaps Aaron, will answer the phone when you call that 1-800 number within a few rings,
Yep.
and will start helping you from the outset, and they will provide information and referrals to help find the right services for you. So Aaron, you might want to tell people
Sure.
a little bit about what happens.
So when we answer the phone, we never know who the person is, what part of Australia they're calling from, and what they're going to need. And we get people ringing who are in crisis. We get people who ring, they just need somebody to listen to them. And then those that are ringing up looking for connections to services. So sometimes it's not a matter of just listening to what the person says, it's a matter of actually hearing behind what they're saying as well, to understand what it is that they need. And then taking down the information, and we do research. We don't just only, at the Disability Gateway, we don't just bring Google up and say, okay, you want an occupational therapist, here's one in your town, next caller please. We'll actually look into it, we'll research it, we'll contact the organisations, we'll check their capacity, and then we provide the information back. And we try to provide a minimum of 3 if we can. Other times, as I say, we get calls where it's crisis and we have to connect the person to appropriate mental health services. So it's unclear at any time as to what you're going to hear on the other end of the phone. So every day is different, and some of them can be challenging.
Thanks, Aaron. I have access to the Teams chat of the consultants, and there's such a great community of people who are determined to resolve whatever the issue is that the callers are calling about. So they'll be saying, okay, I've got a person in Toowoomba and they need, a speech pathologist, and the child that they're wanting to support has got high challenging behaviours. Can you find somebody? And then everybody gets on and has a look. And someone will always have an answer. Sometimes the answer is there's no one who can help. So that will sometimes be the answer, but we will do whatever we can to try to get you 3 options. So there are 3 ways to connect. One is you can send us an email and we'll get back to you within 2 days. The second option is to phone. I would highly recommend that because there's no delay in gratification. You'll get a real person answering the phone as long as you call between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Otherwise you'll get Aaron or someone will call you back. And then there's the website. So the the website's the first one and the last one is the email. The Disability Gateway website has got a whole lot of services that are funded, the services that are funded by the federal government, the state government or local government. And there's also a connection there to Ask Izzy. Can I have a show of hands of who's heard of Ask Izzy? Wow, okay, well, it's really worth. It's about the same number of people who knew about Disability Gateway. It's an amazing website that is listed by the federal government as an excellent resource for finding local services in your area. And there's a link to that on the Disability Gateway website. Who can call the service? I'm just going to go back there. Anyone can call the service. As I was saying before, you don't need to have a formal diagnosis, you don't need to have an NDIS plan, you can be calling on behalf of someone else. You can even call anonymously. A lot of people don't want to give their name to the service when they call because it represents a government service, so until that trust is built, you can just call and give a pseudonym. As long as we know what neighbourhood you're in and exactly what your needs are, then we'll be able to navigate for you. Anything you want to say about who can call the service?
Yeah, sure. So we, as Lisa said, we do get calls from either the person directly, their family. Sometimes it's providers ringing up if they've got concerns about clients. Privacy is a very, very big part of what we do. We need explicit consent of the person with the disability before we can provide thorough research. Sometimes when we don't have the consent, it means that we can give a broad overarching information to the person, but we always make sure that we protect the privacy of the person. That's at the foremost of everything we do.
Yeah, so I think it's important for people in the room and people who might be online to know that if you are a service provider and you've got people coming to you and asking for supports that you don't have and you don't know where to send them, please send them to us because people can call as many times as they want and we will help them navigate over the years, as different issues arise. We're not a support coordinator replacement. So each time you call the Disability Gateway with a particular challenge that you're facing, one consultant will stay with you while you resolve that challenge, and then you'll say goodbye to them, and then the next time when you have a new issue that comes up, you call through again, and then you'll get a new consultant who will then see through that challenge with you. So information and referrals are qualified by us for you. We might start with Google, or we might start with our online database that the consultants have, or we might start with Ask Izzy, but we will find the services and then we will contact them on your behalf. So and as you can see from the slide here, we've got all areas of life are covered. Probably, what would you say, Aaron, would be the most common
I think
call inquiry?
Sure. So at the moment, of course, a very hot one is NDIS. So we're getting a lot of calls about NDIS and the rapidly changing environment there. Advocacy is another large one. I never knew how many calls would come through for advocacy till I started working there. Housing, unfortunately, is becoming quite prominent in the current climate. We are finding a lot of people in financial stress, and it's unfortunate that people with a disability are some of the hardest hit by that. So we are getting a lot of calls from people, and some of those are quite challenging calls to take. Some do occasionally end up in having to have welfare checks performed on people. So we do take the time to listen. I always say to my callers when they ring, if you can tell at the start of the call that someone is in distress, one of the first things I say to them is, there is no time limit on this phone call. And I tell them that and just listen to them and to just be there with them sometimes. That's all you can do for some people. But yeah, so those are the main ones. Then you get your general ones that we would get a lot of around employment, education.
Parking permits.
Parking permits is very...
It's a hot topic. We're not sure why.
We don't know why, but I get
we've had a flood of
three, 4 calls a day some days.
Yeah.
I believe that our number is now on the back of the parking permits in most states.
Oh, that could be
So people will be ringing up because their parking permits can't be read anymore because they've been in the sun. Everyone seems to be getting that one at the moment. So everyone's become a bit of an expert on what every state requirements are for parking permits, because that's the other side of the job, is that, you know, what happens in Queensland is totally different to what happens in Victoria or what happens in Western Australia. And knowing which state has services for different cohorts and knowing which states don't. So there's quite a bit of information behind the scenes that we have to tap into to help people.
Thanks, Aaron. Okay, advocacy. Can I have a show of hands of anybody who's aware of the shortage of advocates available? Okay, well, advocates are difficult to come by at the moment particularly, and in recognition of this, Department of Social Services, who funds the Disability Gateway, has set up the Disability Advocacy Support Helpline. So if you have a client or if you yourself need access to an advocate and you're not able to find someone, you can contact Disability Gateway, and we are the only way to be directed to Disability Advocacy Support Helpline. We call it DASH. You'll get a call back within 2 days, which is very quick for an advocacy service. They'll be able to help you over the phone, and for short-term advocacy needs only. So if you have an ongoing issue and need longer-term support, then they'll be able to steer you in the right direction. Now, because this is about accessibility, I pulled out some stats to have a look at what we're doing at the moment. So the translating and interpreter service is quite commonly accessed by our callers. It's for people who don't speak English. There are 2 ways to connect. You can call directly through to the Disability Gateway, and then we'll bring in a TIS translator, or you can call TIS directly, and then they'll put you through to Disability Gateway. This year so far we've had 85 inquiries from the translator interpreter service. Have you had any of those?
Yes, I've had a
Aaron?
couple. And they are interesting phone calls, because the thing that I always have to remember is to keep talking to the client, not to the translator, because you can tend to end up talking to the translator. They can be very long and taxing phone calls. Sometimes it can be a few minutes just to get the simplest, or what we think is the simplest of information for the translator, with the back and forwards going to the client. And most of them can be resolved actually on the phone. Some of them go into the research situation, and then when we call the person back, we always try to ring the client first. When we get them, you just say, I will get a translator, and then you have to put them on hold, and you ring through to the interpretation service. And depending on which language you're after, sometimes you can get a translator within a couple of minutes. Other times it can be quite a hold if it's not a common language that you're having to use. So.
Thanks, Aaron. So a question that I asked Aaron when we were preparing this presentation is, what do you do? Because Aaron's getting the call, and Aaron also has accessibility issues. So what would you do when you get a call? What technology do you use?
Sure. So I use screen ring technology called JAWS. So the way I like to explain it to people is I've got many voices going through my head at the one time. So when I'm on a call, I've got the client talking to me, I've got the computer talking to me, but then I've also got, in the background, we work on Teams, as Lisa mentioned before, is a big part of our interaction with the team. So I've also got that talking to me. So I've had to learn how to filter the 3 to the one that I want. But I'm always up forth with clients, and straight at the start, if I need to, I'll say to them, look, if I have to ask you to repeat something, and I'll explain it's because I'm blind and I use speech software, and the computer has decided to talk just as you gave me your phone number. A lot of the times that can actually be beneficial for me, because it builds a bit of rapport with the client. I have had a couple of situations where it didn't go so well, but I like to let people know so that they don't think I'm not listening to them. If I have to say, look, could you repeat that phone number for me? So it can be challenging, and then when you're doing the TIS calls, you're then having to listen for the interpreter talking, and they can be talking with the client, and depending on, again, what the language is, some of them, it actually sounds like they might be arguing with each other. But I've learnt that that's not what it is. The first time I got that, I actually started to get a bit afraid, thinking I don't know what's happening here. And then, of course, you've got where there's certain words that are only in English and not in the language that they're using. And I had an interpreter say to me one day, this, and all the other English words you heard. So they are interesting.
And I'd just like to say as well that we have recognition of the consultants who work on the phones. Each week there's a number of recommendations, and Aaron is flooded with compliments from the clients because he's a real dog with a bone. So if somebody presents a challenge to him, he won't leave it alone. And lots of consultants go to Aaron and ask for his expertise as well. So it's a perfect job for him,
Thank you, Liz.
for us, yes.
I'll give you the money after.
Okay. And then we have the National Relay Service and Auslan for callers who are deaf, hard of hearing or speech impaired. So that's where we call in, or where Aaron would call in a relay officer. They stay on the phone the whole time throughout the call and don't interrupt. So they're really trying to be invisible but doing the translations. They can change voice to text and back again, and they can change Auslan to English and back again. So you'll be starting to get the idea that if you need to find disability services and you contact Disability Gateway, we will find a way to understand what it is that you're needing. And we had 58 Auslan inquiries so far this year and 25 National Relay Service inquiries. And I'm going to skip past the case studies because I think we've done them as we've kind of had the conversation. Yes. So please reach out to us. If you would like to speak to me personally around partnerships with your organisation, then please email at partnership.dg@benevolent.org.au. And if you would like help from a consultant like Aaron, then please call the 1-800 number, 1-800-643-787, or email us on the email there, or click on the Contact Us form on the Disability Gateway website. Thank you very much for having us. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Aaron. And as you were talking, it just got me to reflect a little bit about where I came from, Sri Lanka. And I've travelled back to Sri Lanka after that spinal cord injury. And I think people can only dream that we have services like this in a country like that. So I think it's a part of the reason why we need to acknowledge what we have and to fight to keep them and to make things better as well. And it was also heartbreaking to hear about the phone calls on housing. The Disability Royal Commission's recommendations were responded to by the government recently. And one of the most disappointing things that I saw was that one recommendation which wasn't accepted was to raise sub-minimum wages for people with disability. I think if someone isn't paid right, how can they afford housing? So we have a bit of work to do, but we're lucky to have people like Aaron on the other end of the phone when people call. And with those welfare checks, I can tell you from personal experience that they do end up in our emergency departments on occasion when they reach the end of the line. So on a more brighter note, I would love to introduce Mandy Fryer, our own Mandy Fryer, and Kylie Hogan. Mandy is the manager of CheckUP's Access for All program, which I've had the great privilege of being a part of. And Kylie is CheckUP's workforce manager. And I don't know if Mandy knows this, but she's one of my most favorite human beings on earth. And and when I see an email from her, I smile every time. So over to you.
hopefully will improve the lives of people with disability. But I'm going to hand over to Kylie now, and she's going to talk about the NDIS and the ABC program that we have, and she'll explain what that stands for in a minute. And then I'll come back to you. I've got something very, very exciting to share. Oh, am I wrong? Oh. I don't have a shirt that's easy to go on. All right. I'm assuming I just press forward, do I? This one? Yep. Happy days. Hi, thanks for having us. So as Mandy said, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about a couple of the disability related projects that we have at CheckUP, and NDIS Business Connect is sort of, I was going to say one of the newest, but nearly. ABC is slightly newer. And NDIS Business Connect is funded through the Department of Family, Seniors, Disability Services and Child Safety. I had to write that down because it's changed recently. And we appreciate the funding from them. It's part of their Disability Peaks funding program, and we're funded through until 2028, which is pretty exciting. The broad aim of the project, or any of the organisations, I guess, funded through this funding, is to improve the quality of services and the safety of service environments to ensure that people can access support. So that's sort of a lot of big words that really mean that we're aiming to have quality services that are accessible and available for people with a disability to access. And I think probably for us the most important part, or one of the most important parts of that, is that they're able to do that within the communities they live in, so that they can access those services wherever they are. So what is the project about? This project is about increasing the business capacity and capability of sole traders and small businesses within the NDIS space. So any of those businesses that fall into that category that are delivering any sort of service or support that a person with a disability might access. We focus on, and I think I took out, there was a word in there, around thin markets, and I sort of chuckle a little because when we talk NDIS, then probably everywhere in Queensland and or Australia is a thin market in some way, shape or form. But for this project, we'll have a focus on First Nations businesses and culturally and linguistically diverse businesses, because we know that people from those cohorts traditionally throughout the life of the NDIS have had low utilisation rates, so they find it much more difficult than the rest of the population to access disability supports. And any services being delivered in rural and remote locations. So again, a big chunk of Queensland covered under our area. The project will work in partnership with a whole range of stakeholders, both industry, those people using the services, anyone providing funding, or local stakeholders within communities. And the aim of the project really, or the work of the project, will be to identify and respond to some of those challenges and issues that those providers are finding in being able to provide the services and supports they do. That will look like a whole range of different things, including both one-on-one support for businesses, group supports, providing information and referrals to other resources and connections to different programs and supports available. And a big piece will be about advocacy, so listening and hearing what is happening for those providers in that space on the ground, and being able to then advocate that up to help change policy. Given they're small sole traders and small providers, then the collective advocacy is a really important piece of the work we will do, because one little voice is hard to stand up against these really large corporations, but if we bring them together into a collective space, then their voice is louder, hopefully. Really exciting, and this is, thanks Roxy for pulling this one together this morning. The way to access it and be able to share some of that information will be through our new website. It's nearly ready, so our comms and marketing team have been working very hard with the developers to get it ready. And so that will be the place. Currently you can find information on the regular CheckUP website. Been very conscious in the delivery, the design and delivery of this website, that it is an accessible design and that it adheres to the different standards and accessibility, and hopefully we're doing that well. But see, David said we'll be able to go back and check now. I'll make sure that, I guess, if we send out the slides, that there's a contact number there for me if people want to find out a little bit more about the project, but or you can go via the website and click on a link and it'll send you through to me. Very quickly, because I know we're on time, the newest, so slightly newer than the NDIS project, is the ABC for Disability Service Provision, and this is the latest in the micro-credentials that CheckUP has been funded to develop, funded through the Department of, can't remember now, DTET, it was DESBIT. So this micro-credential has been designed to be able to work in conjunction, I guess, with the previous project I just spoke about. And it's to support those businesses that where maybe disability isn't their primary business, to understand a little bit more about what it is to deliver services and what they might need to think about or build their skills in to deliver services to people with a disability. Called ABC, the units will cover appropriate services for people with disability, understanding biases and assumptions, and then communication. Very early days, we're in the process of establishing an advisory group for that, so if there is anybody in the room or online who would like to be involved in the development of this micro-credential, then likewise, if you can get in contact with us, that would be great. And that's me, Mandy. I hope that was quick enough. I said I could talk underwater, but they put me at the end, I think, so I couldn't. Forever.
Right. And am I on speaker? I'm switched on. Okay, so I'm really not going to talk too much about Access for All because I think most people know about it. So it's an online disability awareness course, particularly developed for health providers. But I just wanted to sort of tell people that it was found, we had it evaluated, and it was found to have a statistically significant improvement in disability awareness for people who did the course, and 97% of the participants intended to improve the accessibility of those services. So we're really quite confident that it does what it says it's going to do. But today, what I really wanted to do is kind of launch our case study booklet. So Access for All has been going for about 4 years, and so for about 3.5 of those years we've been collecting stories and case studies of people with disability, health providers, our advisory group, on how Access for All and their life experience has sort of impacted and changed their life experience. So if you scan the QR code, that would take you to the booklet, the Cases for Inclusion booklet. It's also on our website on the Access for All page, and it's really a wonderful sort of, I guess, composition of everyone's stories that's been involved in Access for All. So we're really grateful for the generosity of people that have shared their stories, because I found it very, very eye-opening and quite compelling at times. So it's nice to see that Access for All has had a really broad effect and sort of impact on people, and it's been, you know, useful for people as well. So yeah, please download that. I really think you'll enjoy it. So yeah, and that's it. Okay.
Amazing, thanks, Mandy. And, so that brings us to the end, and there's a book draw. And, yeah. Oh, another handsome guy on the cover. So there are 2 names here. Are these?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've drawn them, and these are the people. Oh, okay.
There's online draw, don't worry.
Excellent.
nothing
Yeah, there we go.
sus.
So we've got Shannon Dawson. Shannon? There's no Shannon. Is there a Shannon?
Someone did have to step out earlier.
Oh, what a shame. We'll get it to him. We'll get it to him. And then online, Bianca Tyak. Yeah. Hello. Congratulations. Thank you. And thank you for...
Sign as well, Dinesh. I don't know.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. There we go. So that... You should sign them. Yeah. So that brings us to a close. So thanks for all the speakers for sharing their stories. Thank you for all the work that's gone into making this happen and creating these important conversations. So I think, again, I think we are lucky to have the community of us. Everyone in this room, everyone online, we are so lucky to have each other. We're so lucky to share these conversations and stories. But I want to encourage you to be courageous, be brave, and go out and spread what we're doing. Spread the message. Spread the work of the Disability Gateway, of Emma, of all the speakers. Because the people we need to reach most often are the people who are not in this room. So you're the tip of the spear. And if we do that, I think we can change the world together. So thanks for being here today.